Hello, and welcome to this section on compliance within vRealize Operations. Compliance in vRealize Operations is all about helping you to maintain consistent configurations across your infrastructure. Whether you're just looking at simply applying best practices, or maybe your organization has its own set of standards that everything needs to be deployed against for simplified troubleshooting or maybe even better security posture. Maybe your organization is bound to regulatory compliance standards. No matter what the reason, vRealize Operations is there to help you get compliant and maintain that state across your infrastructure for better compliance posture. vRealize Operations can analyze the configuration of your software-defined data center components, such as vCenter, ESXi, virtual machines, vSAN, NSX, and more. Plus, it can analyze the configuration of any object in vRealize Operations using custom compliance benchmarks. vRealize Operations allows you to track and remediate configuration breaches in order to stay compliant. And through the automation framework, vRealize Operations can remediate configuration breaches automatically as soon as they're detected. Now, this functionality leverages industry standards such as HIPAA, PCI, DISA, CIS, FISMA, and ISO standards, as well as VMware security configuration guidelines. The compliance view within vRealize Operations shows how compliant your software-defined data center or hybrid cloud is against applicable compliance templates. A compliance score is provided as a percentage of the number of applicable objects that are compliant. Compliance benchmarks can be assigned to various pockets of your organization or across all of your infrastructure, depending upon how your organization's requirements are structured. And this is accomplished through vRealize Operations policies. Now, compliance breaches are delivered as alerts within vRealize Operations, which offers flexibility in terms of notifications or even triggering automated remediation workflows. Compliance can also be viewed at the object level. By selecting the Compliance tab at the top, you can evaluate the object's standing compared to the applicable compliance templates. Compliance scores are a percentage of how compliant the object is compared to the total number of compliance rules that it's being evaluated against. And violations can easily be viewed as a checklist to help resolve compliance issues. vRealize Operations can also generate scheduled or one-off reports to help with compliance remediation projects. Now, some users or teams within your organization may wish to exclude certain object types from being evaluated for compliance. For example, if you have a deployment team that is responsible for the builds and configuration of virtual machines, there may be no need to identify how many ESXi hosts are non-compliant, or even include these in their compliance score. Now, some organizations have their own guidelines to ensure consistency and want to create their own compliance templates based on this criteria. To create your own custom compliance template, just click the Add Custom Compliance button on the Compliance view within vRealize Operations. This will then prompt you to select what alerts you want to use to make up this new compliance template. After your custom compliance template is defined, vRealize Operations provides a summary of the security posture for that template in the same manner that it does for the out-of-the-box templates, as well as the optional compliance templates such as HIPAA. Custom compliance templates can also be used to combine multiple regulatory and vSphere security templates into one. So that way we have just a single compliance score that we can evaluate against versus having separate ones for both vSphere security, HIPAA, PCI, SOX, all of those types of things. So it really allows us to fine-tune the rules that we are evaluating against and therefore be able to control our compliance score and make sure that that is accurately reflecting our compliance posture. Let's just take a minute here to talk about vRealize Orchestrator, because this does tie into compliance within vRealize Operations. Now, if you're not familiar with vRealize Orchestrator, it's a drag and drop workflow creation application that can be used to simplify the automation of complex IT tasks. And this integrates with vRealize Operations through the management pack for vRealize Orchestrator. And what this allows us to do is to execute workflows from vRealize Operations. We can do this either manually or we can automate it when, say, an alert gets triggered, which, like we said before, vRealize Operations compliance is really built upon alerts. So with this, what we can say is, hey, vRealize Operations, if you see that we are out of compliance, go ahead and run this workflow, which will go ahead and automatically put everything back into compliance. And through this management pack, there is a set of workflows that will provide automated ESXi host compliance remediation against the vSphere security guidelines. And what this will do is, once an ESXi host is out of compliance and that alert gets triggered, vRealize Operations will execute that workflow. And after the workflow is complete, you can actually get an email notification to let you know that A, it was done, and B, if there were any problems along the way that might require some manual intervention. So this is a really slick integration and allows vRealize Operations to automatically remediate compliance issues. Now, of course, if you're using custom compliance, or maybe you're using a different compliance template, you can also create your own vRealize Orchestrator workflows to automatically remediate those compliance issues. The compliance dashboard within vRealize Operations provides out-of-the-box summaries of the compliance posture of your SDDC environment. Each object that is subject to compliance is evaluated with respect to the vSphere, VSAN, NSX-V, and NSX-T security configuration guides. And these guides provide documented standards from VMware for maintaining the proper and secure configuration of the SDDC environment. The compliance capabilities within vRealize Operations aren't just for the private cloud. They can also be extended to hybrid cloud environments as well, such as VMware Cloud on AWS, Azure VMware Solution, Google Cloud VMware Engine, and VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. And since the SDDC and infrastructure components are all managed by the provider, compliance standards are evaluated against the virtual machines, because that's what you as the customer have control over. So this includes the vSphere security configuration guides, as well as regulatory and custom benchmarks. The vSAN security configuration guide also applies here because it is looking for encryption being enabled for your virtual machine. So that does apply here as well. So again, we're not going to evaluate things like the ESXi host configurations and whether or not SSH is enabled or disabled, or if the DCUI timeout time is configured or not, right? This information is not available outside of the providers, not to mention it's managed by the provider as well. So if you do have questions about that, then you can reach out to the providers, but that information is not available within vRealize Operations for those reasons. These next two items are going to be looking at the compliance of vRealize Operations itself. And some of our US federal customers require something called FIPS mode. And what FIPS mode does is it enables vRealize Operations to run in a manner that is compliant with federal data security standards, specifically FIPS 140-2. Now, when FIPS 140-2 mode is enabled, any secure communication to or from vRealize Operations version 8.4 and higher uses cryptographic algorithms or protocols that are allowed by the United States Federal Information Processing Standards, or FIPS. This mode is not enabled by default, but can be enabled either at the time of installation or after the deployment. However, one thing to note is that this is a one-way process. So once FIPS 140-2 mode is enabled, it cannot be disabled. Native management packs included in vRealize Operations are also compatible with this mode, and many other management packs from VMware can run in FIPS 140-2 enable mode. However, check the release notes and documentation to check for that compatibility. Now, another requirement is a mandatory login message, and this is part of the Secure Technical Implementation Guide, which is also required by federal standards. So this mandatory login message and consent banner can be customized and enforced, making sure that all users agree to the terms before they log in to vRealize Operations. And that concludes this short section on compliance in vRealize Operations.